Welcome to Light and Shadow. I'm Indigo, and I've created this space so that we can talk about all of the unseen layers that go into creating us and shaping us into who we are. And this week, I'd like to start out by asking you a question. Have you ever responded or reacted to a situation and then later thought to yourself, maybe I overreacted to that and I'm not really sure why? Yet, on one hand, you see that you could have overreacted, and on the other hand, you're like, well, I did react that way because of X, Y, and Z made me feel A, B, and C. And the reason that it feels like it was probably overreacting is because it probably was a trigger. A lot of times when we notice ourselves overreacting to a situation after the situation has ended, it is because we know in our present day lives and the way that we feel now, we probably shouldn't have reacted that way, and we can see the way we should have reacted. Yet in the moment, we understand that we reacted that way because it made us feel, again, X, Y, and Z. And we have reasons and justifications, A, B, and C, for, again, the reason and justifications as to why we reacted that way. And, again, that is the tricky thing about triggers. Triggers don't always have to be loud, over-dramatic meltdowns. Sometimes they can also show up as shutting down or withdrawal, people-pleasing, defensiveness, or over-explaining even if you're not defensive. And again, not only are triggers tricky because they can show up in all of those ways, they are also tricky because our reactions and our responses to our triggers are based off of the belief that those responses and reactions are what are going to keep us safe. So again, if we overreacted to a situation and at the moment we felt justified and like this was an appropriate reaction, but then later we can go back and see that it probably was overreacting and we didn't need to get so over the top with it, and we could have proved our point without being so dramatic, for lack of a better word, then again, it's probably because we were triggered and resorted to a behavior that in the past we had to use, again, to confirm that we were going to be safe. So there are 3 layers as to why triggers are tricky already. First of all, becoming aware of the fact that you overreacted to begin with, all of the different ways that triggers can show up, and then the fact that our triggers are based off of the belief that our reaction to our triggers are what is going to keep us safe. And now we're going to add a 4th layer, which is the fact that before we start healing, our truth feels like the truth. Not just a version of the truth, but the whole truth. So before we start healing, we filter the world and everything happening around us through a certain lens, which has been shaped and wired over time through our childhood and the environments that we grew up in, everything in between. And so as we grow up, if our triggers are getting loaded, we are going to, again, see things through our filters that we have put on over the years. So even if someone didn't judge us, or even if they didn't reject us, and even if they didn't say something or mean something in the way that we took it, it still feels like they did. Therefore, you got triggered. And once you are triggered, it really doesn't matter what happens or who says what or anything of the sort, because that trigger got triggered and now we are looking at things through that lens. And even if our reaction to that trigger was disproportionate, at the time we don't necessarily question it, because again, this is how we have always reacted when faced with this specific trigger, because we have over time learned and taught ourselves, or been told, or whatever it is that put this into place, that this reaction is what is going to keep us safe and get us through this situation. So the moment that you realize that you were triggered, even if it's after the fact, that is when growth happens. Growth does not start with responding to our triggers in a perfect way and behaving perfectly all of the time. Growth starts when you realize, hey, maybe I overreacted to that, and again, I'm not really sure why. And then actually taking the time to go back and look at why you felt the way that you felt, what things what things were that made you feel that way. English, how does that work? I don't know, don't ask me. And then actually taking the time to dissect the things that made you feel the way that they did, and looking back even further than that and seeing things in the past that led those things presently to make you feel the way that they did. I know that that was a little confusing and hard to follow. It is kind of hard. It is a back and forth thing. It's going into the past and going into the future, and it's kind of weird how all of those things all intertwine all at the same time, even though it is in the past. Even though it's in the past, it is presently affecting us if we are not conscious of how it is presently affecting us. So again, growth does not start with perfect behavior right off the bat. Growth starts when you start to realize that your reactions are not the way that you want to presently react. We can take that power for ourselves, and we can consciously react in every situation from where we are now and not from our past. They say the first step in fixing a problem is admitting that you have a problem, but you cannot admit that you have a problem if you don't even notice the problem. You can't change what you don't notice. So hopefully that helped you guys a little bit. We will talk a little bit more next week about what exactly triggers are, why they happen, how they happen, and all of those good things. So hopefully I'll see you guys then. If you guys liked this video, have any concerns or thoughts, then leave them down below. I'd love to read them. And again, I will see you guys here next week.